Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. I got to move this a little bit so you guys can see me and all the glare outside. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys had a nice weekend. Hope you guys are on your purpose plan, continuing to conquest not only things around you, but obviously yourself and under God's purpose. So today we're going to talk about dealing with the 7 deadly sins from Richard Smith. But I also want to do some shout-outs here, catch up a little bit. So Johnnie 5LBC 213, thank you, my friend. Kneisha Francois, thank you. Hoang Giang S.R, maybe more than 1%. You're probably right. Probably getting higher. I'm glad to hear that. Target all day. Be careful with the slippery slope. I think you're right. Thank you. Stuart Wagner, nice haircut. My beard's starting to grow back again, so I'm going to have to maybe get another goatee. I like that goatee I had for a while there. Maybe I'll go back to that a little bit. Thank you, bud. Stuart, thank you. Appreciate it. Brother Nature, Tobe Van, thank you. Corleone. Cheng V, thank you. Stuart Wagner again. Johnnie 5LBC 2113. King Uche. Optical Man. Christian Guillany and TKO. Thank you guys for all your comments. Let us talk about the dealing with the 7 deadly sins. So Richard, thank you. A shout out to you, my friend, for bringing this subject up. I like it. Let's talk about these. So we're talking about things like pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, sloth, and wrath. So let's talk about these. So we talk about the whole idea, warriors, the fact that we need self-control. Going back to Stoicism, going back to even the talking about what the Lord wants you to do, the Lord's purpose of you. We are men, manly men, warriors who need to go ahead and be that strong, independent person who is a leader. But we can't do that. We can't lead other people, and we can't show examples of other people unless you can control yourself. And this all comes back down to controlling yourself. You can't lead women. You can't lead other men. You can't be that strong person unless you're able to overcome the biggest challenge you'll have, warriors, and that really is yourself. You can fight all the battles in the world. Even the samurai soldier did that. But what he found out was basically the hardest battle was internally. The hardest battles are to try to get together and say, I'm going to live a certain type of life. When we talk about these 7 sins, we can talk about each one of these. We have to kind of realize that all these sins are set upon us by the evil one. The evil one has traps set up for us, in my opinion, as we go along, and we have to kind of navigate around those and make sure we're not getting caught in those. So we talk about pride, for instance. Let's talk about pride. We have a lot of talk about pride of late and things like that. The whole idea, my friend, is that pride is something that becomes a self-centered type of thing. Pride is not a good thing. Now, the media, everybody else wants to tell you that pride is a good thing, but pride is something that overwhelms you. Now you think that you're entitled. Now you think you deserve something. Now you think you're the table, all these things. And we see so many people with this attitude that they have no clue what God has in store for them. But they'll find out the hard way, and there's no reason to judge them because they'll find out themselves that God is not going to be that forgiving when it comes to these type of things. And you have to really kind of, in your mind, realize that everything that you do is under a microscope from God. And to understand that, and to kind of say, okay, I need to have some direction here. I trust you, Lord. I need to move in the right direction here. So when it comes to pride, there's no reason not to take care of yourself. There's no reason to take care of yourself physically, spiritually, mentally. But pride is something when all of a sudden you become the God, and there is no God. And that's when the problems occur, because you cannot be the God. You are the person who God created. And so as a human being, you're a step below what God is. And God should be that higher entity. And if you don't really understand that, then you're kind of living in a false world because you believe you're the one that dictates everything. And eventually, you're going to get self-destruction because you feel like nothing is going to hold you consequences, and that's why sins are so deadly, because you can kind of self-destruct with this. The second one we talk about is greed. Obviously, we know this one. The way that money is in our society, people put it on a pedestal. They want money to be the end-all, be-all type of thing. But the problem is that money cannot ever buy you that happiness. Cannot have that internal happiness that really is something that's going to make you a joyful person. That comes from within. The money is great to have, to do things with, and to give to other people and make sure that they have things, and all that is wonderful. But the bottom line really is that it's only a tool. And I think if you look at this in the right way, you can actually kind of, use money for the right purposes. And obviously God wants you to give money back to God and tithing. Now, I have not been that great with that over the years, and that's something I have to continue to work through. But that's something that is important for God to have, because you're trusting in God, that God's going to meet your needs, even though you're giving out 1/10 of tithing or whatever it might be. Lust, of course, we talk about lust all the time on this channel, because lust itself is something that the evil one puts you down to that level. You have to be able to have a level of retention so that you're eliminating lust from your life. And as you got more of a habit, you're becoming more spiritual, you become more inwardly than outwardly, and all of a sudden you don't need all these type of stimulations around you. You don't need the pictures, you don't need the images, you don't need the women, you don't need that. And now you become someone who can kind of dictate those situations that you want, and you can try to avoid and get away from those situations you don't want. But lust is something where a person can't stop. So you see all the connections here. People can't control themselves when it comes to greed and pride and lust. Envy is another one, right? The same thing you find when people really, and I find this a lot when they release a lot, they are very jealous, envious, right? Because they can't control those emotions, and those emotions stem up. And once the evil one has you, they grab onto you and they continue to push you with all these sins. They all are connected in many ways, in my opinion. But if you can have retention, if you can stop the flow of these, then you can actually stop all of these at one time. So I think certainly envy is something that you're going to see become less and less the longer you're on the streak, because you're not going to actually have that same emotional reaction. And a big part of this, guys, is controlling your emotions. Women and children can be emotional. Men cannot have that level of emotion. There's times where obviously it's important to have empathy and emotion, but the society is backwards in telling you that we have to be a soft, emotional person. So sometimes you can have a little bit of feeling. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's no way. Men need to make decisions. Men need to be in charge of things. And there needs to be some level of detachment of that. And I think that's important. Gluttony, of course, the same old thing too. You're talking about gluttony. A lot of this is referring to food as well. But the thing is that when you're envious and you're not controlling yourself, you're letting yourself go. And this is why people eat themselves to destruction as well. And so you look at, this idea of working out. Your diet should be involved. Obviously, your working out should be involved. And all that really is a matter of self-control. Being able to control yourself so that you don't eat so many calories. Right now, I have this one app called Lose It that I'm on all the time. So I keep my calories low on the treadmill and planks, and really working out well. I mean, we're getting closer to my goals of the 6-pack. We still are probably at about 2.5 pack, but we're getting close. We're getting close. And I like it. So it's a great thing to do. But also, once again, going back to the deadly sin. It all starts with retention. If you're able to retain and you get that level of control, now you can focus in the other areas we're talking about here. And it's almost the same thing goes the other way. If you can't control yourself and you're always releasing, or you're always having intercourse every night of the week, you're not going to be able to control these other things as well. And so this is why gluttony of things, whether it's drugs or food or what it might be, become important. So sloth, all these kind of things, these are really types of things that, you get anger, you can't control your anger. Wrath is another one. You can't control your anger. Again, you see the same tendencies, warriors, of these things all the time. If you're a person who's releasing, and you've probably been there, I was there, you have a tendency to overreact to people because you have more emotion. You have more emotions coming through, so you could be angry, you could react in a different way, and that's a problem. But again, this is caused by the fact that you released and that you're not in control of yourself. You can't stop yourself, and you can't move on to other types of things. And so all these other ones, whether it's being a sloth, whether it's pride, greed, lust, all these other sins come back into playing because you cannot control yourself. So the person who can't control themselves with retention really will have trouble controlling themselves on anything else. This is why they fall for things like gambling. This is why they fall for things like drugs. They think they can handle these things and they can't. And all of a sudden they find themselves in very bad situations because they have not been able to control themselves. And the whole idea here is you need to have that level of self-control. But it starts with retention. You're able to retain. You're able to kind of tell yourself, okay, I can do this and I have control over myself. The body's not controlling me, I'm controlling the body. And the mind has to be able to kick in and say that you're in control. And so all of these 7 deadly sins are deadly. But it can start getting rid of these sins and not sinning by using retention. Once you start with retention, then you're able to say, okay, now I'm going to move on. I'm motivated to do retention. I've gone through some days. I mean, it took me probably about 30 days. And all of a sudden I realized there's a lot of other things I could do, like taking a cold shower, which took a little bit of self-control to just jump into water like that, take a little risk. And then obviously diet was a huge one. Not overeating, which is something it took me 2.5 years, 3 years to kind of do this. But I'm starting now to watch my calorie intake a lot more. And then certainly I think when it comes to things like, greed, those type of things, making money is great. But the main thing is that you want to help other people with money, and you want to be able to get out there and use the money for good purposes. And all that kind of takes a real strong control level that people who don't have it, they don't have any level of control at all. And so they're running around like, crazy people sitting out there because they can't control their emotions. And so this is why you see people who are, off the deep end on a lot of different things, and they just don't understand that a lot of this is caused by themselves. They are not in control themselves. And the same thing going with women as well. You cannot control another woman unless you can control yourself. And I think the whole key is to be able to control yourself. The more you can control yourself, the more you can control your other surroundings around you. But that means also eliminating those 7 deadly sins and to be able to address those and fight the evil one as you go along. So anyway, Richard, thank you, my friend. Great topic. Dealing with these 7 sins, I think the biggest thing you can do is to start retention, go for long streaks, and even if you relapse once in a while, release, go back to your schedule and fight these deadly sins all the time. And I think you'll be on the road of success, happiness, and more importantly, joy. You have joy inside of you because God sees you as a great person, and knowing that you're working towards his plans once he's able to kind of help you gain control of yourself. And I think that's a crucial type of thing. All right, my friends. Well, enough for today. Let us continue having a great day, and always remember 2 things I say. First of all, every day is a new day to a great warrior, and today is going to be a great day. And the reason we talk about this all the time, because every day we have to continue to battle